In this video, we'll go over the Tools section of Iris. I've loaded up a preset called Eerie Half-Life Mist for this section. Now, I picked this one for two reasons. First, it's a great atmospheric pad sound, and second, it only uses one voice, so that's going to keep the tool demonstrations a little cleaner. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can undock the toolbar if you want to by clicking the eject button. And I'm going to go ahead and use this as a floating window for most of this chapter, just because it'll be easier to see what's going on with the tools out here in front of the spectrogram. The toolbar is divided into four subsections. The first area contains the view tools. The second area contains selection tools. The third area contains tools that let you invert your selections, plus the select none and select all options. And then you have another set of undo redo controls and a preview button. The first view tool is the zoom to selection tool, and it is going to make whatever you have selected fill the screen. So let's select none and clear the spectrogram, and then use the lasso tool to grab just a little tiny piece here in the middle. Now, if I click the zoom to selection, you can see the little piece of audio in the middle fills the entire screen. And just for fun, let's jump back to the options menu for a second. Change the spectrogram to precise. Now, when you're zoomed in this close, you can really see that the higher precision view is very useful. Okay, let's back out of that. I'm also going to put the spectrogram back into auto because the precise setting takes a little longer than I'd like to refresh the display. The next zoom tool, the one with the little X, is the zoom all or zoom out full tool. Now you can see this backed us all the way out to where the entire sample from end to end is visible. If you ever get lost moving around a sample, this is your go-to button. The next tool is just simply called the zoom tool, and if you click on it, your cursor turns into a magnifying glass with a plus symbol, and then you can click to zoom in. But if you hold down the Alt key in Windows or the Option key on a Mac, you'll see the symbol turns into a magnifying glass with a minus sign. Now you click to zoom out. You can also use this tool to click and drag around an area, and then Iris will zoom into that selection. The last tool in the zoom controls is the hand tool. Now this one will only work if you're zoomed in at least a little bit, but it lets you click and drag around what you're looking at without changing it. And if you move your mouse way up to the top, to the waveform overview area, you can click and drag the view box up and down the waveform. And the only time this won't work is, again, if you're fully zoomed out already. Watch, if I click on the second zoom tool, the zoom out full, the view box goes away because the entire thing is visible in the spectrogram. But if I reselect the magnifying glass and I zoom in even one click, the view box becomes visible again and I can drag it around. As long as we're up here, the brightest area, which is the one outlined in the thin white frame, shows you how much of the waveform is visible in the spectrogram. The light gray area shows you how much of the waveform is used in the current selection, and the dark gray shows you the entire waveform from end to end. The next set of tools are used for making selections in the spectrogram. This is where the real magic begins to happen. The first three are the time select, time and frequency select, or frequency select. So let's clear everything out again and see how these work. You use the time select tool to grab vertical stripes of your sound. Okay, this example is a little hit and miss, literally. But remember, if we click on the All view for just a moment, we only have one voice active in this patch. So let's load up a waveform in the sub-oscillator. And we can do this right from the All view by clicking in the spectrogram area. Let's throw in a triangle wave. Now, the triangle wave will become the primary sonic texture, and we can use that time striping in voice number 1 to add periodic texture or effects over the top. You know what? Sample number 1 is a little too soft. So let's click into the mix view again for a second. And I'm going to put my mouse right on top of the gain value in sample 1, then click and drag vertically to adjust it. And I can use this same trick to turn down the gain on the sub-oscillator. Now, of course, you could reselect the control panel for the sub, make the same adjustments using the rotary controls, but the mix view will save you a little time and save you a few clicks. We can actually get rid of the triangle wave by right-clicking in the spectrogram and selecting the option to clear sample. Alright, let's click back to voice number 1 and clear all selections again. The next tool is the time and frequency select. In other words, it draws boxes. Now that might not seem too exciting, but if you're after a staccato or mechanical effect, it works really well. So if I draw a series of tall rectangles, kind of like pipe organ pipes, and play C5, you get this. And let's grab a chunk of lower harmonics from side to side just to give it a little more structure. And just for fun, take a listen to it played up at C7. And you can click and drag the boundaries to fine-tune your selection. However, once the shape merges with another selection, you lose this ability. The last tool here is the frequency select tool. Now we use this in chapter 2 to grab harmonic and enharmonic portions of audio. And we can use it the same way in this example to add to our increasingly complex selection. Let's grab the lowest 5 white lines. Here's another cool option. With any of the select tools active, you can hover over a selected area and you'll automatically get the hand tool. But this time you can click and drag the selection around. So we can scoot this entire selection, this entire shape, up a little to where our frequency selections move kind of from the white lines to the black lines. All right, next is the lasso tool, and I think by this point you're pretty familiar with that. But here's a cool trick. If you hold down the Alt key while using it, it carves out of your selection instead of adding to it. Next is the paintbrush, and this lets you freehand large areas like this. And you can use the slider at the bottom to adjust the width of the brush. And just like the lasso tool, you can hold down the Alt key and use it like an eraser. Actually, when you hold down the Alt key, it becomes the eraser tool, at least momentarily, which you can tell by the little minus sign next to it. The next tool is the magic wand, and it enhances your selection by intelligently adding material which is similar to whatever's under your cursor when you click. It's a little bit random sometimes, but it also comes up with some selections that would be almost impossible to create manually. The last tool here is the eraser, and I think we've effectively covered that, but just remember that you can resize it just like you do the paintbrush. Finally, this last group of tools is used to invert or flip selections based on time, frequency, or both. And then the last 2 buttons should be very familiar, Select All and Select None. Now let's select the next chapter and look at the keyboard panel and performance controllers.